A huge thanks to today's video sponsor, Piedmont Lithium. Hey, what's going on everyone? It's Sean from All Things EV, and in this video I want to focus on Model Y's range efficiency. In other words, how close does the real world range get in comparison to what Tesla's website says the estimated EPA range is. Now, I want to key into a couple of things here before I dive into the primary content of this video. We are talking about estimated EPA range. I also have done 3 videos on the Model Y, and I am a huge fan of it. It's my favorite Tesla vehicle that's produced right now, and I think it's Tesla's best vehicle that they produce. It will sell extremely well in my opinion, and will address a very large market. Now, the reason why I did this video is because when I tested a Model Y Performance about a month ago, 2-3 weeks ago, I did some performance testing and I also did a range test in this Model Y. Now, it significantly underperformed the estimated EPA range, and I thought it was really odd to me. I did have an extra body in the car that added a couple hundred pounds, and so I thought, well, did that really impact the range that much? So I decided to rent another Model Y to see if just me in the car alone had any impact on the real world range. Now, if you haven't watched my Model S Performance range test video, I'll catch you up to speed on some of the criteria that I use. Number 1, it's always the same loop. So I start one way on I-70 heading east, and then once I hit about 50% on the battery, then I turn around and start heading back west, and I stop and start at the same place every time. The other thing that's helpful to know is that the variable speed limit that I travel is between 65 and 75 miles an hour. The highway mostly is at 75, but there are some places at the moment where you do have to slow down to 65 miles an hour. The temperature that I began this Model Y range test with was slightly cooler than what I did with the Model Y Performance range test, but when I finished the Model Y testing, it was about the same temperature as what I began the Model S test. So you'd think that there'd be a slight advantage there with the Model Y, being that the temperature was cooler, but I really didn't see that. I'll also add that it's about 2,000 feet elevation change one way. So when I start, I'm at a higher elevation, and then as I travel east on I-70, it is slightly going down, but when I turn around, I'm now then heading back up 2,000 feet. So it is a round trip. It is as even and as fair as possible in my opinion. Now, there was no significant wind. I think it was about 5 miles per hour coming out of the northwest, and 0 rain. The one thing that I noticed about this vehicle right off the bat is that it was very energy hungry. It was even more energy hungry in the very beginning than what I tested the Performance Model Y a few weeks ago. Every 30 minutes, I would check the watt hours per mile to track how I was using the energy along the trip. There were moments where this non-Performance Model Y that I tested yesterday ran more efficient, but it seemed like the Performance Model Y was more efficient in some places. The stated range for the non-Performance Model Y on Tesla's website says 316 miles. When I began this trip, I only managed to get up to 314 miles. And because the Model Y was so energy hungry on this trip, I did have to modify the speed that I was traveling on the way back just to ensure that I would make it to the supercharger, my original starting point. So where the highway was 75 miles per hour, I did drop it down in some places on the way back to ensure that I would make it to my original starting point, the supercharger on the east side of Denver. The other thing that I noticed while I was driving back towards Denver is that the range estimator seemed to fluctuate quite a bit, telling me that at some points I would get to the end destination with 1% range back, and at other times negative 9% range back. This made it really difficult to determine whether I was going to make it back, whether I should stop the range test altogether, or whether I was going to run out and be stranded on the side of the highway. I want to take a real quick moment to thank today's video sponsor, Piedmont Lithium. They're publicly traded on the NASDAQ at PLL, and they're a lithium hydroxide mining company. And when they approached me to sponsor the channel, I thought it would be a really great fit for you all who are watching, as well as myself, to provide an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the fundamentals of lithium, how it's mined, how they find the mines, how they develop them, and ultimately how they get put into electric vehicles. Piedmont has a project actually in North Carolina. So they will be developing lithium and sending it to suppliers of lithium to develop that will ultimately in turn be in electric vehicles. So you can check them out either by going to their website, piedmontlithium.com, or you can find them at their ticker PLL or on social. Thanks so much, and let's get back to the video. This, I think, is a solvable problem for Tesla by updating the software for the range estimator. This is a really important thing for Tesla to improve on, because for those that are on long road trips, or maybe for those people that are like me that do a lot of driving around town in a single day, it's really helpful to know how much range you're going to end up with and whether you need to stop and charge or not. Thankfully, I did make it back to my original starting point, and with 2 miles of range to spare, I traveled 271.4 miles over a little over 4 hours with a 268 watt hours per mile energy usage. So my effective range for this trip was 273 miles. That's based on a 316 mile stated estimated EPA range on Tesla's website. That's a really stark difference. And perhaps you might be thinking, oh, well, this is because you were driving at highway speeds, and the EPA does a variance of driving that they use to estimate that range. However, when I tested that Model S performance under the same conditions at the same speeds, it actually exceeded the stated EPA range on their website. So why did this long-range, non-performance version underperform so much? I'm really not entirely sure why that delta is so great between what range is on Tesla's website and what I actually got. My hypothesis, which I do want to test out, is I think it might be tied to the 20-inch wheels that are on this vehicle. What I would love to test out is a Model Y with 19-inch aero wheels. So if you're watching this and along Colorado's Front Range have a Model Y with 19-inch wheels and are willing to donate it to science for half a day, I'd love to test it out. Hit me up in the comments or send me an email. And if I pull up my stats for the performance Model Y that I tested 2 or 3 weeks ago, I see a similar shortfall in range. This delta of range that Tesla has on their website versus what you actually get in real world is important because consumers are making the buying decision based off of what Tesla is telling them. And if the realistic range is significantly less than what is being advertised, some people might feel like they're being fleeced. And that's never a great way to build trust with a consumer as well as brand loyalty. So perhaps this is all just a point of confusion, and Tesla should update the range for the 20-inch wheels for that long-range non-performance version. If I can test a 19-inch wheel Model Y on the same track before the temperatures start to change greatly, I'll certainly report that back, and we'll have a comparison between the Model Y performance, the Model Y long range, as well as the long range with the 19-inch, what I would call aero wheels. This is Sean, All Things EV. Thank you so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. If you're a regular, hit the like button and please share this video out to someone that you think might find it valuable. A big shout out and a thanks to Patreon supporters for funding the channel, and I'll catch everyone on the next video.